Hello everybody and welcome back to Nancy Drew Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch. Right now our heroes are about to visit the ghost town. Tex frowns when the girls approach him. Gonna have to take one of my boys with you. Rowley's promised the Historical Society they wouldn't let none of their guests go there by themselves. Afraid you people will run amok, maybe burn the place down or something. He turns to study Chet and Dave, deciding who should go. Dave glances at Nancy. I could take him, he says. He volunteers, trying hard to sound nonchalant. You and Chet can both take him. See if any of the other guests want to go. Don't want to have to do this but once. Eventually, Jim Wallace and both Dallas and Bonnie Kreider join the girls and head out of the corral in a line behind Chet. An hour later, after circling around Shadow Mountain and crossing the ridge on the other side, the riders approach the run-down remains of the abandoned mining town known as Dry Creek. And we've just got the Dry Creek collectible! Alright.
I can see why they called it Dry Creek.
Chet leads the group over to a small grove of trees near an old horse trough, where a riderless horse is already tied. Looks like we got company, Chet remarks as he dismounts. Chet and Dave exchange a wary look. It'll be fine, Dave says finally. Looks like just one, nothing we can't handle. After watering the horses and making sure they're securely tied, the group sits down in some shade to eat the sandwiches, pinion nuts, another collectible, and brownies Mrs. Thurman packed for them. I never cease to be amazed at how delicious brownies taste when you're starving, Bess comments between mouthfuls. When they're done, Chet stands up and addresses them. Okay, over yonder's what's left of the saloon. Across from it is what used to be the general store. And next to the store is a building that used to be the assayer's office on one side and the sheriff's office on the other. They're all real interesting. So the assayer is a person who verifies the gold or silver content of a rock. Jim points to a nearby hill surrounded by a decaying picket fence. Is that the cemetery? Yep, up there's the one for good folks. Then Chet points to an area at the base of the hill, and that's the one for bad folks. It's called Boot Hill. Are we allowed to explore? Dallas wonders. All you want. Hot dog! Poking around old mining towns is kind of a hobby with Bonnie and me. Kind of a weird hobby, but okay. Just use your heads and don't destroy nothing. And be sure to get over to the saloon. You can look for scrip in there. I once found 9. Scrip. Tokens used in place of money. As Jim and the Kreiders drift off to explore the town, Bess glances uneasily at the cemetery, then suggests, I say we see the old buildings first, and save the cemetery for last. Fine with me, George shrugs. Now, we have 3 locations we can go to, and we are going to visit all 3 locations before heading to the cemetery. So I think I'll start with the saloon. Nancy, Bess, and George cautiously push through the half-decayed swinging doors and stop, looking around. The faded sign above the dusty counter says Cappy's. A few crooked shelves still hang below it, barren and useless. Wow, look at this old thing, George marvels, crossing to the upright piano on the far wall. But when she hits one of its ancient keys, the only sound is a thin metallic thunk. Immediately, dozens of crickets scurry out from the cracks in the keyboard. Bess jumps backwards with a yelp. George also backs away. Whoa, so much for playing chopsticks. Nancy, who has been looking around, suddenly spots something. I think I see one of those old coins Chet was talking about, she exclaims. Maybe I'll try to beat his record. Beat his record of finding 9 coins by finding 10 coins. Okay, everybody, let's look for old coins. So let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright. And as a reward, we get the Morgan Silver Dollar collectible. Found 10, Nancy says, and look what else I found. A Morgan Silver Dollar from 1888. Terrific, Bess says, with little enthusiasm. Now can we get out of here? Everything I touch turns to bugs. Okay, so now let's go to the sheriff's office. The girls push aside the half-hinged door and step into the small, ramshackle office. 2 cells made of thick, floor-to-ceiling iron bars take up the back of the room. What little light there is comes from 2 tiny windows. Cheery little office space, George observes wryly. Guess architects weren't big on windows back then. More like they weren't big on people escaping, Bess counters. An old desk sits in the corner of the room, one leg broken. Nancy coaxes open one of its warped drawers. Inside is an old music box. Now what would this be doing in a sheriff's office? She wonders aloud. George peers at it and shrugs. Maybe his wife gave it to him, so he wouldn't go loco sitting in this dingy room all day. Look at the graffiti! Bess is standing in one of the cells, gazing at all the names and initials scratched into the walls over the decades. George shakes her head in disgust. What is it about people that makes them want to deface everything they see? They just want to be remembered, George, Bess says, crouching in front of the far wall in order to get a better look. I think it's touching. Squinting in the dim light, she runs her fingers over the layers of carvings. Wouldn't it be cool to find something Dirk Valentine wrote? It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, George sighs. Let's check out the assayer's office next door. When they enter the adjacent area, they're surprised to find someone already inside. This is the person whose horse we saw earlier. The pleasant-looking man turns, nods politely, then continues to look around. His outfit, a western shirt, bolo tie, vest, hat, jeans, and boots with Rowelled spurs, suggests that he's a cowboy in appearance only. Keeping their voices low, the girls explore the room for themselves. Slightly larger than the sheriff's office, it has 3 windows. A tall table and stool sit in one corner. A small bed, its mattress long gone, sits in another. An antique safe sits in yet another, its door open, its lock removed. What is an assayer, anyway? Bess frowns. Must have been some kind of banker, George asserts, noting the safe. It's someone who would ascertain the purity and consequent value of gold, they suddenly hear. The girls turn towards the man, who smiles apologetically. Sorry, I couldn't help it over here. I'm a history buff. And a bit of a show-off, I'm afraid. That's all right, Nancy assures him. Information is always welcome. Bess eyes the old scale, mortar, and pestle, and dust-covered beakers that litter the table. So that's what all this stuff was for? Yes, he answers. Miners would bring pouches, or pokes, full of whatever gold dust and nuggets they'd found to the assayer, who would then determine how much actual gold was in the sample through a series of tests involving various chemicals. He'd keep the gold and pay the miner what it was worth. He smiles and extends his hand. I'm Andre Ferris, by the way. The girls introduce themselves, then Nancy asks, Do you live around here? No, I'm visiting. I'm staying at Black Creek Ranch. Bess's smile fades. We're staying at Shadow Ranch. Really? He looks puzzled. I could have sworn Mr. Nash said that place had closed. Well, it was nice meeting you. Enjoy! He saunters out the door. Must have been his horse we saw, Nancy observes. How come we had to have a chaperone to come to this place and he didn't? And what's with Nash saying the ranch was closed? Suddenly George sneezes. My nose has had enough of this place. Time to mosey. Let's try the general store, Bess advises. There's probably more interesting stuff there.